Up next on Inside the SCCA, flagging on the world stage. Welcome to Inside the SCCA. I'm Brian Bielanski. We are here talking about flagging and communications all over the world. We had a guest who we were going to have on this weekend, Nicole Havadra. She's a little under the weather, so she called me yesterday and said, actually sent me an email because she had no voice. Said, Brian, can we do this at another time? And I said, sure, I'm not going to make you come on when you can't talk. Kind of defeats the purpose of a podcast. So I punted, and I remembered that it's LeMans this weekend and Canada in a couple of weeks, and we have a bunch of SCCA racers who go to those things. So I put the call out to find some racers to join me on the podcast tonight. And this is who I came up with, folks. A superstar, rock star panel here with me. So one of these guys is a longtime friend who I absolutely love to death. That's the guy on, I guess it would be on the left if you're looking at the TV. That's Dave Sue. The other guy, I'm sure, is a guy I'm gonna love, but I've never met Chris before. Chris Buccola. Did I get it right, Chris?
Yes, you did.
Cool. Dave's from the Washington, D.C. area. Chris, Skokie, Illinois, right?
Yeah, Chicago region.
Okay, Chicago region. I was born in Chicago, spent a little time in Arlington Heights, grew up in Lake Geneva. Your home track is my home track, Road America, and Blackhawk Farms. That's where I spent my childhood. Those places will never be the same. I'm sorry to all of the people I tormented as a youth. Not that I would ever do anything bad or anything. So, but anyway, Dave, we want to start the show with a bit of a tribute. And we lost a flagger who a lot of people know and love yesterday or the day before. And I did not have the opportunity to get a chance to get to know Jim. But I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about him, and we're going to dedicate tonight's show to him.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, we wanted to dedicate tonight's show to Jim Kreider, longtime flagger, former driver. I believe Jim competed in autocross, eventually got a comp license, ran ITA for a bit, but is really best known as a volunteer. He'd been a longtime Detroit region member, and when he moved to Texas, took up with Houston and Lone Star regions down there. And unfortunately, Jim was diagnosed with colon cancer several years back. And, being the engineer that he is, he immediately set about to developing a very scientific battle plan with the best experts in the area. And he is in a medical expert-rich area. But he fought the good fight, and eventually it got him yesterday.
Yeah.
But most recently, Jim was sector chief for the Formula One U.S. stops in Texas and Miami, and made sure he was there last month, making the rounds, making sure the troops were well taken care of. So this is for Jim. He's
one of those guys who I heard a lot about over the years and never had a chance to get to know him. So I am disappointed in that. But for those of you who did know Jim, I just want to extend my my condolences from everyone here at the Inside the SCCA family. And we're going to do this one for Jim tonight, and we'll have him in the back of our thoughts. And I'm sure as everyone goes to Canada, I know he enjoyed Formula One a lot. I'm sure there'll be toasts raised to Jim in a couple of weeks up in Montreal. So, all right, let's get to it. I put the call out this morning, and these two guys jumped right in. I also had a couple of people who are actually at LeMans try to join us, Kiki and Trevor, and both of them made the reach out, and I said, it's going to be like 3:00 in the morning when we do this. And I know they're planning to stay up all night, probably on Saturday night, but this was not part of their sleep schedule. So, but they're all having a good time, and they extend their best wishes to all of us. And they're at LeMans getting ready to do their thing. But I wanted to talk about this for a couple of reasons. One, I'm sure you both have great stories to tell, and to tell us about kind of what it's like to be there. But the other is um, to kind of talk about the process of how to get to some of these international races and why it's important to be an SCCA member and be trained by the SCCA when it comes to getting an invite to do this. Um, so let's start with a story because that's the fun part. Let's get each of you to give me your best story or one of your stories about going to Le Mans. Chris, have you done F1 also?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so we've got F1 and Le Mans stories. Let's start with Le Mans stories because that's this weekend. Chris, why don't you give us tell us a little bit about one of your experiences there?
Oh, I mean, for Le Mans, I mean, we'll keep this PG, I guess.
It's just the three of
and
us. Nobody's
yeah,
watching.
no, for Le Mans, I mean, honestly, it's try to remember the stories, but I guess one of my biggest stories is remembering the first year I went was in 2010 as part of a 3-month backpacking trip I actually did, and it included doing a British touring car race and the Nürburgring 24 hours also. And we just got off shift and we're sitting down eating because you stay on site. Your post is like literally the camp is like your post.
Right.
And my turn is Mulsanne Corner. So we have the town of Mulsanne right behind us, which is great. Little shopping center right there. The most amazing bakery ever. I'm just missing that. I was actually supposed to try to go to Le Mans this year, but I had to back out just due to various reasons and stuff, in the race car and other things.
Sure.
But so we sit down to have like a little short dinner and everything because we did the first shift of the race and how things were going. And sit down, get our suits tied around our waist and everything, and eating a little bit. And I just hear a whistle from the chef de poste of that time, and I just see flames shooting over the Armco as this car just goes flying by, and it's one of the GT1 Ford GTs that is just engulfed in flames. And so we hear the whistle, we get up, and we start running towards that. And it was very interesting because they're already trying to fight it. And actually, it was the all-female team, and she actually pulled against the barrier, like the perfect spot. The problem is she had to get out the passenger side.
Uh-oh, yeah.
The car was just smoke and everything. And on TV, you're like, where's the driver? Where's the driver? And you see her actually pop out. And by the time we get there, we're doing things. They're fighting the fire in the back. I actually run out to the front, pull the pin, the external pin for the extinguisher, and we're fighting that. And then I deal with her because she's almost like going into shock. And the funny thing about that is that the medical car arrived and all that stuff, and then wanted to drive away that they had her. And I actually had to stop in front of them and almost got run over, saying, "No, you're taking her with you.
Right.
Like, what are you doing?" So it's a little bit of a different world over there, but that's kind of one of the stories that comes to mind most and everything. So with Le Mans.
Yeah, because with as long as that track is, Dave, you can go a long ways and spend maybe even the whole 24 hours to have nothing happen really by you, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm at a spot where nothing ever happens. It's no, it's my crew covers the Michelin chicane, which did it get renamed this year? I don't remember, but it's the second chicane on the Mulsanne
or something.
Yeah, so to a large extent, since it's effectively a straightaway coming in there, we don't. It's a very strange thing to blue flag Le Mans because given the length of the track, you would think surely there must be a bazillion cars out there, but there are only about 60 entries, so
Right.
it's not that much larger than when we used to do a 12-hour at Summit Point, except instead of a 2-mile track, you've got a almost 8.5-mile track. So if you play your cards right and you get good at reading headlights, you can see them pop over the rise at Turf Rouge and kind of disappear into the first chicane and look at your watch and say, I can sit down for a while and just kind of read the lights when they show up down here.
Sure.
Because I've got time to get it all sorted out.
So,
It's
so for those who've never been there, there's a big difference in the actual flags, right?
Well, for one, they're massive.
Right.
I mean, like from holding it at chest level, it touches the ground.
And how do you wave that, or do you not?
Dave,
you
I'll
must
let you take
definitely
that.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
you must definitely do. I mean, the flags, the rules for FIA flagging are pretty similar. They're mostly compatible with what we do here. The blue looks a little different because there is no stripe, and there's this kind of this nice sky blue color instead of the usual dark blue that we get in the U.S. But the main difference is we wave everything, and so for the yellows, there is no standing. We just have a single yellow or double yellow. The place where it really is different is the signboards. We have a lot of signboards to have to deal with because the series has different ways of neutralizing a race, and some of them are really elaborate and involve a countdown and coordination between multiple posts and things that we've never seen in club racing here. But it's the same job. We're looking for the same things.
Sure.
We just use slightly different signal.
So do they use communicators who are really familiar with how they do things to then tell y'all what to do with the flags?
We are not directed. If you are flagging Le Mans, you are expected to be good enough to know what you were doing.
Sure. Okay.
So
You said that
we're
the
not
procedures were a little bit different, and the coordinating between corners and stuff.
Yeah, certainly for slow zones.
Okay.
At 8.5 miles, if you were to just go full course yellow, and this is controversy this year because they've sort of taken a page out of the IMSA playbook
Sure.
and are trying to do, if they put a safety car out, they're trying to do a single safety car restart. But Le Mans has other options. They've done developed a procedure where they can neutralize sections of the course, and the course is now segmented quite differently from the old post numbering system.
Sure.
But predefined sectors can be declared a slow zone, and while cars are in that zone, they're on the pit limiter. So it's
Right.
kind of like working in a parking lot. You've got some traffic circulating, but it's at a very easy to read, very easy to avoid speed, and honestly, a speed where the drivers have all sorts of options for paying attention out there.
Right.
But to get those up and down fairly, there are countdowns involved, and there's a 1-4 warning sector where there is no passing, and the cars have that length of track to get their ducks in a row.
Right. So for those who are familiar here in the States, now we have 2 Formula One races. There's Canada, soon to be 3 Formula One races with Vegas coming on board this year. So I would venture to guess that a lot of our marshals probably have some experience flagging F1 here in the States. And that's a little different than what we do here in the SCCA. Just like IndyCar is a little different, IMSA is a little bit different. But for those with the F1 experience, Chris, can you tell us how things are different between F1 and the way they do it at Le Mans?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's honestly kind of similar to a degree. It's more of administration and procedural and just how the way the race control communicates and stuff with things. I honestly find that Le Mans is actually a harder event to do than Formula One. Formula One is, I kind of treat it as any other race. Like, I don't treat any race bigger than another race. Yeah, the intensity is there, but I always try to treat it like the same way that anything can happen, stuff will happen, and that stuff. Because if you let your guard down at times too, people can get hurt, and you also make mistakes. But I mean, it's very, very similar. The flag rules are the same and stuff too. It's just like the one part is communicating and identifying cars, because with F1, reading their numbers is next to impossible.
Right.
So I remember like the one year at Austin, it was like how do you identify the car? It was like by the camera coloring. It was
Sure.
like Red Bull yellow or something like that. And that was kind of like the one big standout versus, the identification at Le Mans. At Le Mans also, it's like my post is like with Mulsanne Corner, we're the lead station. So we're right after the hump that got shaved down after the Mercedes went flying.
Yeah, I remember that.
So you have like 2 seconds to get a blue flag on you to get a car. But it's also is that you're the yellow flag for that post. So you have a radio on to help with Mulsanne Corner. And you try to remind them that, yeah, English speaker on right now. That lasts for maybe a very short amount of time. Then you having to know your French colors sometimes. There's always someone with another radio, but, when it's 3 in the morning and people have done another shift or something, you have to be on top. But with F1, they've taken a lot more of the autonomy away from us and stuff, sometimes with like the blue flagging and
Right.
certain things. I think like for F1, for Miami, they did more of an automated blue flag Wasn't that correct this year, Dave? Then having the marshals do it. It's also for F1. Like we follow F1 style, even with the ones here. Is that like your position is your position. So if you're the yellow flagger, you're the yellow flagger. You're the blue flagger, you're the blue flagger. You know, you don't do a rotation unless
Sure.
maybe for support events and stuff. At Le Mans, each post is actually different of how it's run too. That's the thing too. It's like each little individual city, even how you do your meals and everything else too. It's all different depending on where you're at and how your chef de poste, aka your captain, runs things. So that's also the unique perspective about that too. Is that Dave's corner could be completely different of how they do a rotation, how they do things. Like how Trevor today, he was telling me how he's pretty much off today, and then they're rotating people in. When I did it, we had like it used to be 4 sessions. They were all qualifying sessions for the first practice. So it's like we took the morning shift, they took the afternoon, then the next day we reversed, and then for race day we did, we went through the normal shift.
Right.
But with Le Mans, it's a lot more autonomy than Formula One. And Formula One, I mean, there are a lot of egos. I mean, sadly, and it's the
No.
world stage, and it's like we are the biggest, we are the best, and everything. So that gets pressed upon you
Sure.
a lot more than Le Mans. And Le Mans is also very much of the people there are also very honored that you come over there to work their race and everything. The hospitality and just the locals has been amazing. I mean, like the one bake racing, we get a discount as being marshals. So I mean, like it's like two
I
euros
already like
for.
it.
I mean, it's €2 for a coffee and the chocolate croissants and everything. I mean, your credentials got you into like the circle of like the tech where all the drivers are and everything else, and all the fans on the outside.
Right.
Like they actually this year, the first year, they did a parade for them as the marshals to help celebrate the start of the Le Mans week. I mean, what other event does that?
Yeah. So Dave,
Yeah, it's a very yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the cultural difference is pretty stark, and not just because we're talking about a sprint race in the case of
Sure.
F1, a long sprint versus an endurance race for everybody. F1 is very shiny; it's very latest and greatest. The frustration people have with taking away the blue flags from the station is in part because they feel that they've advanced their timing technology to the point where when they automate the blues, it can be a different blue at different parts of the course. But the key thing is there's a car number that goes with it. So instead of trying to make eye contact, the driver can read their number. Le Mans, though, is very traditional, very French, and that really varies from post to post. Mine, and I'm told this is no longer the case in most of them, but after having done this for 100 years, the post chief role is still hereditary. It's one of the last ones where it is. So the current post chief is, I think, the fourth generation of his family to hold that role.
Wow, that's cool.
He says he would have retired out of that a few years back, except his son was still a bit too young at the time, but he's still hopeful because his branch of the family doesn't even live in Le Mans anymore. They moved away to Alsace years ago, so he comes back just for this event.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very different. We rotate. My crew is actually covers 2 posts, and we have an in between response point for the inside the chicane.
Right.
So
if you guys go back, now you're not there this year. Let's say you both go back next year. Do you still end up going to the same corner that you did the year before, or even if it was 5 years before? Do you find your home and that's you keep going back to home?
Yeah, there's a well-defined sort of when you're in, it's at the discretion of that post chief.
Okay.
So if they want you back, then they'll say something a little bit nicer. And if they don't want you back, they're very polite in a dismissive sort of way. You could certainly apply to another post, but generally it's the same family year after year, and it is an amazing sight. I mean, some of these posts have 6 or 7 different nationalities and 4 or 5 different languages that come together because it's a huge undertaking. We're talking 1,500 marshals to put on that event.
That's crazy. We have a hard
Yeah, and
time sometimes
it's
getting.
also changed a little bit with the digital age too about how you sign up and everything too. And actually, now you can sometimes move. Like there's our people, like if you have friends at other posts are like, come join us for a year or something and things too. And it's kind of frowned upon, but you can do it a little bit more than before. And even how you got to your post was kind of people vouching for you.
Sure.
And to a degree. So when I signed up, I did not know where I was going to be. Actually, they used to mail the stuff to us, and it arrived here by the time you're already there. And also, I had already been over there for over a month, doing the Nürburgring. And so I get on the tram with, because I've been backpacking, so I had my tent, a single layer suit with me, all my corner working gear, along with my civilian clothes that I have. And they're like, where are you, a commissar and everything. And it's like, oh, yes, come this way. And yeah, registration. And they're like, well, where are you? Like, I have no idea where I'm going and everything. I just have like a copy of the letter that I got taken picture of at home and then sent to me. And then just my approval ACUS letter.
Right.
And they tell me where I'm at. And I'm like, oh, you're all the way down my son. Okay, well, I guess I should try to find the bus or start walking. I mean,
Right.
Sadly, I've had to do that a few times because the bus didn't run. And they give you a ride right there. And I show up and there's guys from Sendiv. And I'm like, really? I came all the way here and I got you, Bob and Eric. Oh, this is lovely, So that was my into that post without me even knowing. And I think they kind of enjoyed keeping that surprise from me.
So I get the impression that because both F1 and Le Mans are different animals from each other and from what we do in the SCCA, not everybody loves doing this. You have to kind of accept the whole spiel the way it goes at both places and kind of learn to assimilate how they do things. And if that's your cup of tea, great. And if it's not, then maybe you just stick to being an SCCA flagger, right?
I mean, there's a series for everyone.
Sure.
We just because we're accustomed to dealing with circuit racing on pavement doesn't mean that even whether it's inside or outside SCCA, that ticket opens a lot of doors.
Right.
So I just happen to really enjoy F1 and even more so endurance racing.
Sure. Yeah. So I heard the word ACUS and approvals. Now we're going to get into a little bit of minutia here, okay? Because you can't just show up at Le Mans and register the day of the event, right? And it's the same for kind of F1.
No.
There's some stuff you got to do. What's the process? Let's start with Le Mans. What's the process if I still had my national license, and maybe do I even need a national license? What's the process for me, flagger Brian from Cal Club, California, if I want to go flag at Le Mans?
That's a good question, and you started with an important prerequisite, which is that license. In the U.S., it's actually the divisional license that's considered the journeyman grade. The national license indicates, you've taken that extra step of responsibility for developing your fellow flaggers, for recruiting, and for doing administrative tasks. But at the top level of world championships, they really want experts. We can't make mistakes there. The consequences are
seen by millions.
Competition. Yeah, it really is the world stage, right? As Brian said. So, say you've earned a national license, you've learned, you've practiced, you've traveled throughout the SCCA. The first step for an F1 is find out who the organizer is and where they're organizing. And in the case of Le Mans, it's a little trickier than that because you sort of need a letter of introduction. You need a personal connection to a crew that you're going to try to apply to. The items you're going to need, of course, are your license, but you're also going to need a permission to travel. And this is, true reciprocally for foreign marshals who want to come to the States or come to another FIA event not in their own country. They need a permission letter from their country's FIA organization, which in the U.S. is ACUS.
Right.
And ACUS will issue you a letter if you are eligible, saying we know of no reason why this person should not be permitted to do this. And SCCA, being the license issuing organization, they typically check with us. And in fact, sometimes Topeka issues that letter
Right.
on your behalf. But you need to present that with you to show with your license to show. Yes, I've been approved. I'm not going to embarrass my country by performing at your race.
And for those who might not know, ACUS is NASCAR is a member, IndyCar is a member, IMSA, USAC, SCCA. It's a
And NHRA is the
NH,
sixth.
yeah, it's right, an NHRA. So that's the only way you can be a part of these types of international things is if you're a member of one of those 6 organizations, and your organization vouches for you if you want to go and play. Right.
That's right. And for the type of marshaling we do, the issuing agencies really are SCCA and USAC.
Right.
The IMSA uses SCCA flaggers.
Right.
And so forth.
And so does IndyCar.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So is it? Are you required to have a national license, or can you get over on a divisional?
You're not strictly required to have one, but I think your odds of being accepted without one are pretty slim.
Got it. Okay.
Realize that the other candidates are people who have qualified at a comparable level in their own country. So it's an opportunity to work with some of the best flaggers in the world.
Right.
I actually went over on with a divisional at the time. I was younger and stuff, and also as with having to staff Road America, sometimes a lot of the events you don't have the amount of people to do captain's training at times too, which made it really hard to get a national. And we were very adamant about being able to be captaining to get a national. So that was kind of like my little wiggle room that I had with there too. There are some people with divisionals who have gone over too that I have heard about, but that's also time. That's not just like I'm going to do my first year and go.
Right.
Kind of thing. We want you to be able to have your experience. Put your head there. Because especially at Le Mans, things happen fast. They happen so fast. Like at Dave's post on the Mulsanne right before the chicane, I mean, you look back at the '80s clips with the Group C era and just what things happened there. My post with the flying Mercedes, it's just there's not a lot of wiggle room and there's not a lot of ability. So you want to be able to know that you're the best. You're there too, and also as we respond to over there. Now it's a little more strict when FIA came in with and WC really came in. Before it was at Mulsanne Corner, they used to have what we called the crossing. They'd have a group on the outside at the roundabout standing. They had a group on the inside, and one person would be on the hill. He would signal, and you would have this mass crossing of like 30 marshals. They don't do that anymore. They really don't let us cross track anymore, sadly, which is quite a shame.
So
because my post actually got moved to inside of Mulsanne, which I'm not a fan of that spot. I actually loved my outside post. Also, you had access to the grocery store and the bakery, like I said, during the 24 hours. Trust me, that the food is just amazing. I'm sorry, I had my best burger of my life in the town of Mulsanne. I know it sounds insane, but it's true. And so like I've run out on the middle of the track in the night, and I was expecting to post before and after to doing things, and when my captain in French said, "You can go," I ran out, grabbed this entire wheel, came back. I couldn't see anything really. I just knew where it was, and I got there. And you'll see at times too, like with certain accidents, they're standing on the side of the road, flagging with the yellow flag to like kind of even make that slow down even more when you're doing that. So you literally almost could hit the cars with your flag. So
Kiki sent me a note today. So is that the gazelle position that she was referring to about running out and grabbing something and running back?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have that's a title we give to a certain friend of ours too, who comes over from Holland. So and he's definitely earned that title because he's hard to keep up too with his long legs.
Got it.
But
got it.
But yeah,
so they don't let the
everything.
short round guy like me, who's got 26-foot inch inseam, make that sprint to the other side of the track and come back, right?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's just the middle.
Yeah, that's.
I'm
good.
not judging. I mean, if you're fast, you're fast.
I mean, it is a road.
Yeah,
and that's the thing too. It is a 2-lane road.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you have, and then you have the shoulders and stuff. So, I mean, it's not like some of these parts of it are not like these massive areas like with F1 where you have your track, and then you have like 1,000,000 miles of runoff area before the barriers. There are parts of that now, like in the more permanent sections from like Porsche Curve to the end of the Dunlop S's, but the rest of it is road,
Right.
which makes it so cool. I mean, they literally at Mulsanne Corner take the stripe that divides the road. They'll take it out and they'll put it back down every morning and everything too when they do the barriers. Literally, they're putting lines and lines out. It's awesome. It's just
Yeah.
it's hard to explain.
So for F1 here in the States, Dave, it's is a good place to start is the region in that area, right? So I'm guessing it's Lone Star region coordinates the flaggers for F1 at COTA, right? And is it Central Florida now, or is it South Florida region for Miami?
Well, there's actually a bit of a traveling circus in the U.S. Because once they've started to cultivate some experience in organizing an event at that level, you kind of want to keep the momentum going and bring it to new events.
Okay.
I would not be surprised if down the road we see some of those roles shift to more local folks. But we're in a very unusual period. We have two absolutely first-rate new temporary circuits being put up.
Right.
This doesn't happen all the time in F1. I mean, and I'm going to discount going back to that era of the '80s where it was kind of, well, who can you write a contract with
Sure.
this year? But yeah, it's the need for expertise is going to be regional. Travel is expensive,
Yeah.
and we're still volunteers. They're not paying to move
Right.
400 marshals to the next event. So,
Sure.
everyone's got vacation pressures and budget pressures. And so you're going to have to pick and choose. But, one of the things I'm working on is a project for SCCA because we have Vegas coming up to try to get some more FIA experience out on the West Coast. So, we are intentionally making sure that locals are in key roles for of all things, the Formula E event in Portland, because that's going to be a FIA rules event. It's part of another world championship. And some of those skills transfer, same flags. And we expect to respond to cars. There are a few extra procedures for an all electric series.
Sure. And then there's obviously Vegas we're talking about. And,
Absolutely.
we don't have, in many cases, a huge roster of flaggers out here anymore. And it's the same problems with all regions, I'm guessing. I'm sure there are some that are highly subscribed. I just looked at the rundown from of the flaggers for the June sprints, the entry list for the flaggers. And there's 40 of them, but there's a ton of them that aren't from Chicago or Milwaukee region. So people are traveling a long ways to come to that race. Because it's the June sprints, obviously, and it is in one of the most amazing areas of the country to go do a race. Although June in the Kettle Moraine forest can be blistering, awful humidity and hot, but we do it anyway. Not as bad as August,
right?
Don't please, Brian. Please don't jinx us, Brian, with that, and everything, because we've had the years where Lake Winnebago has turned it into a nice, icy, cold, rainy weekend.
Hey,
so please don't. Whatever you do to unjinx stuff, please do that. We would all greatly appreciate that. We would love that perfect weather.
Even if you're going to melt on a given year down there, I still remember the first time I was on track going down the back straight past the kink there, and it was like a cathedral of trees.
It's amazing.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, we qualified in the Memorial Day or the May National once in Spec Racer. No, actually, I'm sorry, I'm old. In Sports Renault in a snowstorm. So the weather can be. We always used to say, if you don't like the weather, wait an hour.
There's been an IndyCar race canceled in the summer because of snow at Road America.
Sleet, snow.
As crazy as it sounds, but the great thing too is that we love people coming to our area and working.
Sure.
We'll try to come. I mean, the great thing is with us right now that June sprints is the weekend after IndyCar there.
Yeah.
So if people really want to make a vacation time in the Midwest, it is an awesome time to do that. I know I'm doing a little recruiting right now and everything.
Nothing wrong with that.
I mean, it's great. And then actually the weekend after that, we have NASCAR in downtown Chicago.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is a lot to do around here too. So people are always like, I want to try to come to Road America and do the things. Like, come on out.
Yeah.
We would love to have you.
So where do we want to go with this next? if people are just sitting at home thinking about, they come to the racetrack, maybe they're a crew member, maybe they do track night in America or solo, um, and they want to just get started, where, show up at a regional race weekend or even a national race weekend, an SCCA weekend. We don't really turn anybody away anymore who doesn't have a national license or a divisional license at our SCCA events. There used to be a day when you couldn't go to a national without at least a divisional license. Remember those days, Dave?
No, that was before. I got started late in this sport.
Okay.
I was in my mid-30s when I joined SCCA.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you gotta, yeah.
Yeah, you got to go back
I remember.
a bit of a ways, but used to be, especially for like the June sprints, they would be turning people away to go work these events. We don't have those. We don't have that luxury anymore.
We used to also have 5 people at Six Flags or something too,
Yeah.
So you'd see the old pictures and you see like an entire swarm up on the hill of position where they're all looking down,
Right. Yeah.
So
But get out there, start with your training program at your local track, at your local race weekends, and then you'll get to proceed up from there. I would recommend, if you want to go work an F1 race, go find an IndyCar race. That's a great place to get some experience, or an IMSA race. And all of that, and you'll probably want to put together a bit of a resume of what you've done to show to whoever you need to get the permissions from. And that's the easiest way. I remember the first time I wanted to do an IndyCar race, I had to get a hold of this guy Drennan, and ask him to write me a letter, and he actually picked up the phone and called, and got me into my first IndyCar race. So it's getting people out there, get on the corners, show that you know what you're doing, and then you get to go have fun. So
Hey, I'm trying to remember. I don't even remember if the Le Mans form asks you for the resume. I think it does.
yeah,
Yeah,
But it's still customary for many F1s to say, tell me in the last several years, what races have you worked? How many?
right,
What top level races have you done?
exactly,
And we factor that in when we evaluate a candidate we don't already know.
sure,
we actually even do that for here in Sendiv for the pro events too, because it also helps you figure out where someone's good, their experience and stuff too. The Le Mans form is actually all digital now. So like I said, I had applied, I had gotten accepted, but as you say, with having to fly out there and everything too, and money, it's all on our own, and just things just decide not to work out.
sure,
But yes, they still ask for your experience, and how many times have you done Le Mans? Have you ever done all these other things too? So a great cheat for figuring out what you've done too is your worker incentive VIP login.
sure,
Copy and paste that, because that will have your dates and your events too of everything you've worked too. How many days have you done in a year? Did you do IndyCar? Did you do this? Because with SCCA and being under the insurance too, you'll get credit and things like that
right,
too. So you put that in there, and that is a great thing. And you could keep keep it in a cloud document too, so you could just constantly add on it to it.
sure.
And then you could look back and say, "Oh yeah, I did this and everything too." And you can have the little stories remember too and everything.
So we've been talking about Le Mans. We've been talking about Formula One, mostly here in North America. The process is the same. Let's say you want to go do WCE in Dubai, or maybe Monaco, or Australia. I mean, this is a ticket. If you like to travel and you can afford to do so, you could travel the world and go racing, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
There are a couple that are special cases, Monaco being one of them.
Sure.
But no, events of this sort expect and welcome a number of visiting marshals,
Right.
and the U.S. is certainly one of the larger sources of them. So and you'll find that what the organizers provide varies widely, and maybe in a future show we should hook you up with the Bob Duncan Don Howson show, because they really have been making the tour
Right.
in recent years.
And I would think if you went to one of the other WEC events, that would be a good foot in the door to go to Le Mans, right? To do one of the kind of lesser premier events. If you're in Germany
Yeah, it
or
certainly helped. Yeah, Sebring. For
oh yeah,
the last several years, we've had a WEC there. I don't think they'll be back, but
yeah,
Well, they're going to COTA and everything. But no, I mean, it's great too, because we have international marshals that come over here. And so you meet people that are like your connections and friends. And so like people that we've met that Dave and myself know, I'm not going to name names because we don't want to get them too popular. Like have been our connections to, like how I said before, I've done the Nürburgring 24 hours.
Okay.
I mean, that is an event. When I did it, they had 220 cars. I mean, that's a whole, I mean, that's taking Le Mans and then like adding, I don't know, just a party to it, to like Sebring level. Our porta potty disappeared in the middle of the night and came back. But yeah, I mean, you could take it there, and then also just getting to know these people, and too, or just saying even Flag Marshals of the World is a great resource. It's a great community, and people saying, "Hey, I'm like doing this trip. I would love to come out and work there." And people will normally jump on it and say, "This is what you need. Come on out." If it's acceptable. F1 sometimes in other countries it is a little harder to get in because you do not want to also push out locals from their own F1 Grand Prix. And some people get a little peeved about that if that happens. But normally in the cases that they'll try to bend over backwards to get you in if you meet their levels and you are also personable and everything too. And like I say, sometimes the joke is don't be an American, like how like American tourists are, have a reputation and things too. Just be humble, be willing to learn,
right.
and just saying, well, we do it this way in our country and things and stuff. And it's like, no, you're in their country. You can say the way that we do things and just how I'm used to it. I actually did a printout of all our hand signals when I did the trip there, and they loved it. Even in the UK, people loved it. They're like, well, it's hilarious, especially how we do things. But I said, I'm probably gonna be looking like I'm having a seizure or something, just just out of automatic response and everything. And
just
I'm
car
saying,
numbers.
so here's a cheat sheet. And actually, I actually got some people to actually learn on it, and some of them were actually still doing we're doing it.
Right.
I don't think it got picked up by the greater community, but so there are some things that you can do. Or you play the joke of where you have a little piece of yellow tape and you say, "This blue flag is not right. Give me 1 second." You turn around, you put a yellow piece of tape on the blue flag, and say, "Now it's right." So,
Did you teach
I mean,
them the international signal for how to order a ham sandwich?
I don't. That one I do not know.
Well, I'll when I see you at the runoffs next year, ask me to demonstrate that for you.
Okay. That'll be a good one.
Yeah, I think you've got another 8 or 9 years before the next rev of the specialty manuals. So
yeah,
you've got some time to make that one go viral.
exactly. Exactly. So
I mean, in the U.S., a lot of the foreign marshals will focus on events of, in the same series, or at least of that caliber. So, F1 obviously is very heavily subscribed these days. But if you can get in there, you'll meet a lot of folks from other places.
sure.
Sebring is always popular. Daytona, Long Beach.
Petite.
Petite is a biggie.
Yeah,
because
Petite usually
it's
has
that
a big
type of
contingent.
racing, especially. Yeah.
Good stuff.
So,
Good stuff. All right, we've got a few minutes left here. Let's go back to story time. Give us another fun story from either Formula One or Le Mans that you can tell. And remember, it's just the three of us here, so no one else is watching. Give us something.
I'm sorry, I'm sworn to silence on a lot of them, and no one should be surprised that usually they involve
Yeah. Well, I'll give one.
chief.
How about this? I'll give one that's like not going to get anyone in trouble and stuff, and it's actually a little bit about the culture and the experience of Le Mans. Because on the Fridays, though, this year I guess they changed it a bit. They're doing a support race on Friday.
Yeah,
but normally
they
on
are.
Fridays, nothing happens at the track. Everything happens in town, or the crews are working on their stuff and things, or there's like kind of like people cruising around with their things, and there's little car shows and all this stuff. I mean, it's real. It's just you just have to go. I mean, people who don't even like racing, you should go. National Geographic actually said it is the best sporting event in the world. They actually deemed it that. So that's
Nice.
saying something. So yeah, we went into town for we take the tram into town for the parade. The parade looks like, at the end of World War II, where people are in the different levels and hanging out their windows and watching all the stuff and confetti and colors, and
That's cool.
you have the Dutch fans doing the orange smoke because they've always been doing that. There's a contingent from the Dutch that are called Drinking for Holland. So that there's a good contingent. So the last time I went, Patrick Dempsey was racing with Patrick Long and someone else in one of the Porsche GT RSRs. And I'm sitting down with a few marshals. We had, enjoyed some drinks and food and everything. And I think we were having ice cream at this point. It's kind of towards the end. And we just hear, Patrick, you just hear it in the distance. And you see Patrick Dempsey and Patrick Long running in their driver gear to try to go to the parking garage. And then you see the stampede of women following after. And we're just kind of laughing. We're like, do we help them? No,
No.
let's just enjoy our ice cream and everything.
No.
I mean, it's amazing how the French love Grey's Anatomy over there. You wouldn't think it, but they did. You have to know the Corvette guy. Get to know the Corvette team over there. They have a tradition. When it's lunch, they have a little contraption that they built out of multiple train horns that's attached to air, and they'll go out in the middle of pit lane and blow this thing multiple times and then scream, lunchtime. The Americans have a presence there. So,
Right.
I mean, there's just so many. And like I said, there are some things that you are sworn to secrecy. But I'm like, the first time I went, I don't know, Dave, if your turn did it, but our turn did the toast in the beginning of the day. And I was very taken aback by that. My first year, I actually did not do it. I try to say I'm not trying to insult. It's just for me, and that just before race is just not something I do.
It's
ours, it immediately follows the briefing about do not drink.
okay.
Do not drink.
Yes,
And now
exactly.
the toast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that toast, I'm assuming, was champagne and some sort of baguette.
Ours was Ricard, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I've forgotten what we toasted with. I think it was a brandy. I mean,
Nice.
we're in France, so
Yeah. Absolutely.
as one does.
As one does. One in France, we do what we do in France, right?
Yeah.
It's a lovely place, and that bakery down in Mulsanne is. We would go there every morning too, because the breakfast for full was that coffee and two pastries, and I have never figured out how I actually managed to lose weight over the weekend.
Because you're walking so much, right?
Yeah,
maybe there's a lot of standing in place, with the flag.
That's true.
Kind of the same as
Yeah. Okay.
Or if you miss the last bus to Mulsanne and you're at the tram point that's at Tete Rouge, and your phone decides not to connect to anyone, and you might have to walk it a few times like I did, or just like you're just stubborn. I'm like, well, I'm going to just walk this anyways. I need to get tired and everything, and so it's there. But
I'll say
go ahead, Dave.
No, one thing that surprised me the first time was just how hard it was to get to sleep, because we camp right behind the post. I mean, it's probably less than 100 120 meters from the downstream post. So if you're on the Mulsanne, and probably it's the same everywhere, you've got these thundering motors roaring around constantly, and you're trying to get some shut eye. And
sounds like a lullaby to me.
Rent,
it was a lullaby for me too.
Yeah.
I slept great.
It's like the infield at Daytona, except where the noise is 360. I needed. I eventually ended up putting in my ear molds for driving and plugging them into my iPhone, so they would block out the sound.
Okay.
But I would hear my alarm go off.
Nice.
So.
Yeah. Nice. But like when a safety car happened, you're up because you're like, the sound is
something is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, something is different, and it's like, and I get out of my tent. They're like, "Is it shift time?" They're like, "No, you have like 3 more hours," and I'm like, "Oh, great, I'm not getting back to sleep or something." and that's the thing too, is like how you made a comment about not sleeping. Like for endurance races, you have to sleep.
Right.
You have to rest. There's people who you just don't want to. You want to follow it all. You have to. You've already done this for multiple days. You're more tired than you realize just from the travel. the seeing friends, just the experience of just trying to acclimate yourself to the time even. But you have to be sharp. You have to do all these things. There's stuff you're gonna miss, but you get up and they say, "What's been going on?" And they'll try to explain to you. My first year, it's like, "What's been going on?" Half the Peugeots have blown up. Really? Okay. That was interesting, especially since they were kicking the Audi's butts
Right.
that year. They were going pop, 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 and you're like, "Oh, the race is over," almost. But yeah, so it's just that's even at Petite, get a rest. Sebring,
Right.
get your rest. You can still party hard, you can do that stuff too, but just be smart and sensible about your things too.
Sure.
So that's the one thing I will always say for any newbie. I actually had someone, I like to kind of call her my apprentice right now. She's kind of defected a little bit and gone to tech for IMSA and stuff, but she's doing all these great things. But I'm like, okay, we have to get rest. We have to get sleep. Or like, you have downtimes, get off your feet for a moment. Take
Right.
your shoes off, let your feet breathe. All these things. It's stuff that you don't think about because you're just in the moment and you want to
Yeah.
experience the moment. And it feels like a withdrawal because you're being like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. You're like the little kid. It's like you're being told by your parents, go to sleep. So that is stuff with endurance racing and just a big weekend
Yeah.
that you have to do. Even F1, you're up there. You're up so early. Getting that downtime and that rest is important. So
Yeah. It reminds me of my first 24-hour race as a crew member. I had this crazy idea that after the race was over, I can get another 3-4 hours down the road, closer to home. I got about an hour and a half out of Moroso, and I was like, I gotta find a hotel because I am dead.
I think an endurance race at Morosa would be hard enough,
Yeah,
just because it's Moroso.
yeah. So, but yeah, that you don't think about it. So you might not sleep the first time you go to LeMans, but you'll sleep the second time.
Yeah.
You won't make
I mean,
that
you'll
mistake
you'll
twice.
sleep. If your post captain's good enough and they see you're not doing it, then
Right.
someone will probably step in and make sure you sleep and
Yeah.
stuff. It's just what it is. I mean, even at Nürburgring, my sleep was more of I'm freezing because it got to about 4 degrees Celsius because the cloud cover broke and
Right.
we're in the mountains. So that was more of I'm trying to sleep and I am freezing here even with
Wait a
a
second.
winter
You're from
level bag.
Chicago.
I don't do cold great, and it's feet and hands. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
But
Actually,
it says
you've brought up
you're
something.
standing out.
We should wrap on this because this is the one thing I didn't ask. Do you have to take your own tents? How do you? What is the system for what you have to do to sleep? What do you bring with you?
For myself, I tented. I mean, I brought my tent with me everywhere. I had a tent, sleeping bag, all that sort of things. Your mattress, but there are different methods. Like I said, each post is different. Some posts are actually on pavement,
Oh.
so you're kind of restricted. And like some posts, you're actually camping in someone's front yard,
Mm,
and certain things. But there's others who will like have a camper rental where it'll be delivered to them
okay.
and stuff too. I actually would love to do that next time, so I don't have to bring a tent and everything's too. You kind of try to ask your post, kind of what arrangements you make and what
Sure.
you're doing. Some people I know sleep in their rental, if they even have a rental. For me, last time I didn't have a rental. I flew in, took the TGV right to Le Mans, and took the tram, and then got picked up.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Dave, what you
I
did.
sleep in the rental. I mean, some posts, most posts will have some sort of friendly local who might be willing to store some minor items if you're going to be back year after year. And some posts are just so well organized; they have an annual storage. They've got
Mm,
a Connex box or something or other that they stow. But for the most part, you bring your own stuff. And this year, I was prepared to head over to Leroy Merlin or something and pick up a tent
yeah.
and just use that for the duration. You do find out there are some things which they just don't have over there. For me, that included they don't really sell effective bug repellent in France.
Okay.
Apparently, they're just thick-skinned about mosquitoes. So I always bring my own because you can't find anything that isn't wishful at best. And the other thing when we had these, you're talking about a lot of marshals, and in most cases, well, I can't say most cases. It's going to depend on the post. You're lucky if you're near an industrialized area where you might actually have a commercial establishment with flushes. But for the most part, mine is in the middle of a pulpwood forest next to the fellow that owns it. And they just plunked down 2 porta-johns for us, and that's it for a bazillion marshals. So
Yep.
Febreze was a big win.
I love
Or
it.
like for my post, like the shower, we actually went to like the local school or something. It wasn't right there. Or like when they put showers at the spectator area that's across in Mulsanne.
Right.
You know, I made my way over there and stuff. That's not normally where we're supposed to go, but I'm like, I need a shower. And, you know, the thing is too, is also with like the 2 porta-johns, you have to think about, you know, the other gender and everything there too, because they don't empty them half the time, or like maybe they'll do it before race day. So you're only using it for number 2 if you're a dude. Otherwise, you're going in the woods.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's each post is different, like we said.
Right.
Some of them are like, I don't think they're gonna like letting you piss all over the kart track if you're in that sector. You know, I'm sure there's like, oh, I'm new here. I don't know what to do. You know, but,
Well, as
yeah,
I
so
tell
like,
every flagger here in the States, even I don't go to a racetrack without toilet paper in my thing, because yeah,
so
I first of all, the stuff they put in the porta john's just way too thin. Let's just start with that. But nonetheless, yeah, I always carry a roll or two, and I'm always happy to hand out one roll. But if I've already handed out one roll, you're screwed, because I'm not giving up the second one.
So, Brian, you mind if I interject here 1 second? Because I know we're almost done here. But Dave, you'll love this too, because our lovely friend Ian, our Scottish friend Ian, we were all in our marshal gear at the like the main campus, like the vendors area down at the pits area during one of the off times we had. And there's a TV crew out there, and asking us marshals like, if you have recommendations, what should someone bring and everything else too. And Ian looks. This is during the broadcast, mind you. Like earlier in the week, it's like this made it. I've been trying to find this again because I had it at one point and I lost it. He looks dead straight in the camera and goes, toilet paper. Bring toilet paper. The stuff they have here, it's like sandpaper and everything. Yeah, I mean, Dave knows Ian pretty well too. And I mean, he's here in the.
I mean, come on, you know that's rule number 1 of Boy Scout camping.
Yeah.
It's TP.
Yeah.
That's first on the list.
So
Yep.
if you can bring it, and now I don't know what the rules are for customs and things too. Now with other things,
you'll have room because you can provision everything else there. I mean,
Yeah.
until you've been to a French supermarket, it will redefine your expectations of what a $2 chuck aisle ought to look like.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You should not bring any food with you, because in France the food is pretty spectacular.
No.
Oh yeah. It's like you want to bring it back with you, and yet
Right.
you can't with a lot of stuff. I mean,
Right.
Gentlemen,
thank you. This has been a ton of fun. Hopefully next year, maybe we can do this when you're at LeMans, and I'll find a way to do the timing better so that the people who are at LeMans can actually jump in. I'll make an exception and change the timing. This was just too last minute for me to move things around, but I want to thank Trevor and Kiki for trying to help us and being there. But this was a fun conversation, and it's a good reminder for folks as to why we do a lot of the things we do here in the SCCA as far as training goes, because it sets us up to be able to go on these crazy, awesome adventures and have a ton of fun with it. So
look for the new learning management system that will be coming out sometime.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, Sue, Chris Buccola, thank you so much. We will get out of here.
Brian.
Absolutely, we'll get out of here.
You.
It was a pleasure.
This is another episode of Inside the SCCA. If you like what you are seeing and watching, come here and do it again by subscribing to the Inside the SCCA podcast on the Racingwire Podcast Network. Also on the Racing Network on YouTube. Hit subscribe, hit like, all that other fun stuff. We have new episodes live every Wednesday evening, and then we have the replay on Friday on the podcast channel. We do this all over every week. I'm Brian Bielanski. You guys have yourself a great week. Go out, have fun, stay safe, and go play with cars.
Hi, I'm Kelton Jago, and this is Inside the SCCA.
Inside the SCCA is a presentation of the Racingwire Podcast Network and Rule 15 Productions. This podcast is not affiliated with, endorsed, or sponsored by the Sports Car Club of America. The views expressed within are those of the host and our guests, and not that of the SCCA.